Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. Hey, health junkies. On this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I'm talking all about my experience with using the Lumen device. Now, if you haven't seen any of my Instagram posts or stories, then you might be like, what is this Lumen thing she's talking about? It is a little device that detects your carbon dioxide levels in your breath. And you can breathe into it. So you inhale and you exhale into it. And you could do it when you wake up in the morning. You could do it after meals, before workouts, after workouts, before you go to bed, just to see what your level of carb or fat burn is, because that is what the CO2 levels determine. Now, I really want to talk about it, not because I really care if I sell a whole bunch of devices or anything. It's not about that. I'm actually like, this thing is freaking cool, and it answers two of the biggest questions that I get from patients all the time. One, doc, what do I eat? Two, do I need to eat for workouts? What do I eat to recover? What do I need to do? Basically, it really helps dial in for you what you need to be thinking about for you. Not whatever guru says what, whatever diet says what. This helps you to get your own insights into you and what's happening with you in real time. Now, I haven't even been using the Lumen for a month. We're coming up on it, but I am like blown away in terms of the information I've gathered from it on myself. And funny enough, I started using it right around Thanksgiving. And so the fun part about that was, well, I got to see what the holiday effect was on my body. And holy cow, that was a little disturbing, because what I found is I was waking up each morning when I did the test. I'd wake up, I'd brush my teeth, I'd wait a little bit, drink some water, and then I would test. And I'd find that every morning I was waking up in carb burn. Now, do we want to be waking up burning carbs in the morning? No, because we should have switched into fat burn mode. And if we're not, then we're looking at two things. Did you eat too many carbs the day before and your body's still catching up to burn them all? Or are you stuck in fight or flight mode? Those are two really big things to think about, because what I found with a lot of people that do intermittent fasting, or they have been doing low carb diets for a long time and they're not seeing the results that they had at first, or they never had results, but they're still doing it just in hopes of something happening, but they're waking up in carb burn. This means their body's stressed, and that the fasting and the low carb is not the thing for them. And I'll be honest with you, I did a long-term, let's say, experiment on myself after a book came out about a low carb athlete. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try this. And I did well for a long time, but I would say like 2 years, and then my period stopped. And then like my thyroid started crashing, my adrenals started crashing, and I thought, oh crap, what have I done to myself? I wish I would have had the Lumen at that time to give me some insight. But here we are now, and my guess is that I probably was having carb burn in the morning because I wasn't sleeping either. And that's something that I have noticed now with the insight from the Lumen. So let's talk about that for a second, because a lot of perimenopausal, menopausal women struggle with sleep. And sometimes women will struggle with sleep right around their period too. And what I found by using this device is that my carb burn, wake up in the morning, was like, yes, you're totally burning carbs. So the Lumen has like 5 levels. Like level 1 is you're burning full fats. Level 2 is you're still in fat mode but transitioning toward carbs. Level 3, you're burning fat and carb. Level 4, you're burning carb, and level 5, you're burning like straight up carbs, nothing else. And I was like level 5 for a couple of days. And what I found around the period when I had some insomnia was that's got to be cortisol, because I actually wasn't eating that many carbs at that particular time. Now, keep in mind, I am a straight up geek. So with this device, I'm like, all right, I'm going to eat extra cookies and see what happens. I'm going to have those tortilla chips and the foods that I think I'm sensitive to and see what happens. Because I wanted to push it to the limits, because of course I want to share with you guys what I found about myself. Now, keep in mind, we're all different. But what the cool part about the Lumen is that it gives you the insight like in real time. You don't have to wait for a test. You don't have to, have someone else interpret it. You actually get to look at it, and then you've got a journal with you, because I'm recommending pretty much all my patients to have a journal next to them to know, okay, if you're fat burning carbs or you're fat burning or carb burning in the morning, what happened the day before? What happened the night before? Did you sleep? Did you not? So this is fascinating to me, okay? So I've been like tracking what I'm eating, and the Lumen actually helps you to track what you eat too. So that makes it cool and kind of integrates it well so that you can easily look back, because sometimes I don't remember necessarily everything I ate the day before. It also gives you accountability to like call you out as to what you're eating, so you do know. But it also has you tracking your workouts. And I find this absolutely fascinating as well, because I do find that some people's workouts, if they do them in the evening and they push it, sometimes they'll be pumping out cortisol high into the next morning. And it makes no sense. But other than that, the cortisol is keeping the blood sugar up. And so these folks are pushing it, doing hard workouts at night and not seeing any results. Once again, the Lumen can tell you that. So it's just fascinating. So workouts. You can test a half hour before the workout. You can test an hour before. You can test really whenever you want to. But the idea is you want to see what mode you're in terms of fat or carb burn before you go into a workout. And it also depends on what kind of workout you're going to go into. And you can enter this into the Lumen, and it'll let you know, ooh, you need some carbs, or, oh, probably not really necessary to do anything. Let me break it down for you. So for example, if I test and I find that I have I am like burning fat. I'm in a fat burn state. So my CO2 is showing that I am burning fat. And I've got a workout coming up that's a light weightlifting workout. Nothing major, no high intensity sprints or running or any of that kind of stuff. And it's just a workout. The machine will tell me, or the Lumen app will tell me, that I don't need to add any carbs. I can continue with what I'm doing. But if I tell it it's a moderate or a heavy workout, it's going to recommend that I have some carbs before my workout. Now, I have been brainwashed by a lot of gurus that if you want to burn fat, you want to make sure you go into a workout fasted, and you want to make sure that you work out, no food whatsoever. And so I often I worked out in the morning for all my life, because I was trained that way as a kid from all my sports. So I've just done that. And so it was easy to go into a workout fasted. But also, I have this huge fear of throwing up during workouts. It might be very, very crazy fear, but it is what it is. And so I wouldn't eat before workouts. And I found that sometimes I would be super exhausted and super hungry. Like I could eat myself like through my whole kitchen after workouts. And I'm guessing that should I had the Lumen at that time, I probably would have noticed I needed some carbs before these workouts, because I would have entered it as a moderate or high activity workout, and going into it on a carb burn state would have only depleted me further, which I think is a very huge thing for women to think about, because we get stuck in our heads, especially if you were a kid of the 80s. Your head is all in the place of like, what can I maximize fat burn? Oh, if I'm in fat burn now and I got a tense workout, I can burn more fat. Maybe, but you could also create more cortisol and stress your system out, and then not get results with your workout. So, and this is where I found myself more recently in the last couple years, pushing myself to the limits in workouts and then really getting super tired. So what have I discovered with using the Lumen recently? I have played with it telling me I needed carbs for a workout and not taking the carbs, and then tested after the workout, and sure enough, I was burning carbs at the end of that workout, and I hadn't had any carbs. So where are those carbs coming from? Cortisol and muscle breakdown. You break down your muscles to get glucose. I don't want to lose any more muscle mass. I want to gain muscle mass and maintain muscle mass. I don't want to be like big Hercules looking, but I want to keep my muscles on, because muscles equal mitochondria equal energy. But it also equals independence over time, balance, strong bones, keeping you out of the hospital, keeping you out of assisted living, that kind of stuff. I don't have kids. I got to think about these things. And even kids aren't guarantees on that. I'm sure a lot of you can attest to that. So here we are.
I've played with that quite a bit in terms of what to do with the carbs. And I found that if I'm going to be running or I'm going to be going on a bike workout or hike, I'm definitely going to eat before. Am I going to eat something high fiber, high carb? Absolutely not, because I'm going to have gas. Like burritos before working out, worst thing ever. Don't do that. But something like, say a half an apple with a tiny bit of peanut butter or almond butter, that's a good thing for me. And everyone's individual, but think about something simple. Like handful of nuts, you got to break that down. Nut butter, it's already broken down for you. So you want to be thinking logistics here. What's easy? Berries, super easy for the body to break down. Even going down the route, a lot of people will do like a little bit of a protein shake, like a half to a quarter of a shake, or some people will do a little bit of a, like a piece of toast or half a piece of toast and a little butter or something, or avocado or something. All those things are definitely things to think about. What I can tell you not to do is, do you remember those Fiber One bars? Don't do that before a workout. That's bad. Whew. Talk about wanting to explode. I did that before a huge mountain bike ride in Colorado, and it was terrible. Ugh. Not to mention what's in Fiber One. That's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother day. So I just talked about what happens with workouts, and I think it's really important to think about that. The other big thing that I've noticed from using the Lumen and myself is what happens at night when I work late. So I live in Wisconsin, but practice out of Washington. And when I'm there, all bets are off that my life gets a little crazy, and my Lumen went berserko this last time. But when I'm here in Wisconsin and I'm working telehealth, I work late because I'm 2 hours behind my central time. I'm working on Pacific time. So what happens is I work off until 8, 9 o'clock at night, 10 if there's some emergencies and I need to be working. And what I'll find with the Lumen is that any night that I work late, or I'm really thinking about someone's case and what we need to do with them, because yes, I do think about my patients all the time. I don't have children, so you guys are my kids. But it's also because I care, right? I'm a geek, man. I just want to help people feel better, and I'm going to look to try to figure out answers. And so anyway, with my mind going, a lot of times I'll notice that my cortisol goes up at night. And when I test before I go to bed on a later night that I've been working, I'll find that I'm back in carb burn, even though I may not have had a dinner that was full of carbs or excessive amounts of carbs. So that's something to think about. I've also found that the next morning, that night I'll be carb burning, and then the next morning I'll also be carb burning. And so that's a lot of cortisol dump. So you want to be thinking about stressful situations, stressful things for you. I mean, it's not really stressful per se seeing patients, but I guess it clearly has an effect on my cortisol, which I have to work on that. And I'll come up with something as time goes on. But I want to put it out there for you guys to know about what I've experienced. Now, if I have a night where I have insomnia, which happens here and there, not like it used to, I will have carb burn in the morning. I will not be in fat burn. Now, you might be thinking, gosh, she keeps talking about carb burn, fat burn, carb burn. What do we want? Well, ideally, you want to be in fat burn in the morning, because that means that your mitochondria, the little factories in all of your cells, have caught up to the day before. They've caught up all their intake of food and carbs. And if you're not burning carbs and you're just burning fat, it means you're burning fat. Like, that's a good thing. If you're burning carbs, you could be burning carbs from your muscle too. Keep that in mind. This is a huge thing to keep in mind. So I'm kind of in the camp of like, all right, if I'm not sleeping and I wake up in carb burn mode, I've got to get my body out of that. So I will not eat carbs that day that are at all in excess. Usually the Lumen tells me around 60 grams of carbs on my lower carb days, and I go up to 75 or 80 on my higher quote carb days. So you could tell that I'm quite carb resistant, if you will. So it is something I've known my whole life, and watched my body go up and down in weight when I've had more carbs, especially around the holidays. So let's talk about the holidays for a minute. I love certain cookies. I don't know about you all, but there's certain things like nut rolls. I don't know. I mean, I'm Polish. So my grandma used to make kolaczki. So these are like these doughy cookies filled with like cream cheesy sweet stuff, or apricot preserves or berry preserves of some kind. Or we got these nut rolls. And they were made with either poppy seed or walnuts and like cinnamon and like, all kinds of sugar goodness. You get the idea. So if a relative makes it, or if I do, which I usually try not to because, well, then I'm on a mission to eat all of it as fast as I possibly can to get out of the house. And that never ends well. But anyway, there's things that I like. And there's certain cookies that I like. They're kind of like Mexican wedding cookies, but instead they're these crescent cookies. They're old school stuff. I don't care. I can pass a sugar cookie up, a chocolate chip, like all the like new school cookies I'll pass up, but it's the old school stuff and the heritage stuff that I am down for. And so when I get in touch with it, I will have some. And because I had the Lumen, I was like, well, how many can I have in one evening or over the course of a day? So I played with it. We went down to my relative's house before the holidays, and I had 3 kolachkis during the course of our visit for a couple hours. And then I tested to see, was I in carb burn an hour later? Sure enough, I was. And then I tested that night. Yep, still in carb burn. And then that morning again. And that was the only thing I had that was carb treat based. I had some squash. I had, potatoes, things of that nature. And so I was curious about that. And then the next day I decided to keep kind of the diet the same, but vary the treats. So I went to the crescent cookies and see, what that would do. Same thing. No change there. So I was like, all right, what happens if I eat them only at night and not during the day? Yep, carb burn still. Now what happens if I eat the treats at night, but then after that go on an exercise and stop the treats by like 6 o'clock and then go walk for like a half hour, an hour? Guess what? We moved the needle back into fat burn in the morning. So there's a clear connection with me and exercise and carb burn when I have specifically ate treats. I didn't find the same thing to happen when I had things like lentil soup or chili or a squash-based kind of stir-fry thing that I made for myself. I didn't find the same thing happening. But what I did find is that if I went back for seconds on lentil soup or squash or on potatoes or even my chili, I would be in carb burn still in the morning. So what I'm getting at here is the Lumen can tell you about dose dependent, meaning what is your dose of carbs that you need throughout the day. And it even gives you in the app like your amount to eat. So if you go over it, chances are you're going to be in fat burn in the morning. And sure enough, that's happened to me. The only way I got out of it was when I would do exercise or go for a walk in the evening. And so the gurus that tell you, make sure to go for a walk in the evening after dinner to help with your fat and carb, utilization and burn are right in my case, for me. It may be different for you. So this is why I find this, it's just, God, man, it's so cool. So cool. So then, of course, being the person that I am, I was like, all right, now I want to test what happens with fake sugars. So I would eat my normal amount of carbs on a regular day, between 60 and 75 grams of carbs. And then part of it, I would add sweeteners to, like monk fruit, stevia. What happened if I used a little bit more of erythritol? So all of these kind of, quote, natural alternative 0-calorie sugars. I use stevia, though, straight up green. So closest to nature stevia, not your synthetic Truvias and whatnot that are owned by Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Yep. If you didn't know that, that's a whole nother debate, a whole nother podcast. So anyway, I did find that I actually, for me, was fine with the carb fat burn. So I had the stevia and I tried the monk fruit. I had some hot chocolate with or superfood hot, let's just call it adult grown up hot chocolate, but no alcohol. And it had monk fruit in it as a sweetener. And then I tested in the morning and I was still in fat burn after those. But what those created was this drive to want more of that fake sweet. And I think this is where a lot of us get in trouble with those fake sugars like that. I didn't try any of the chemical sugars like Splenda or Sweet and Low or that kind of stuff because I just don't want that in my body. I feel like crap. after those. So I just wasn't going to do it to myself. And I figured it may create a cortisol response and just not be good anyway. So I tested that with the fake sugars. And then the last but not least thing that I kind of played out in my testing and kind of journaling of what my body does is look to see if corn really jacked with me, and to look to see if wheat really jacked with me, because those two have been a hot debate in my world forever in terms of, do they mess me up with my gut microbiome, or are they messing with my blood sugar too? Because if I eat corn, if I eat wheat, if I eat dairy is a known for me. I should not have it at all in terms of lactose intolerance, but also super high on my sensitivity reports. But wheat and corn have shown up for me, and I've had lots of reactions. If you've heard any of my previous podcasts, I talk about corn being a problem for me, but I love it. I freaking love it. And so I'm always trying to find a way, let's put it this way, to see if there's a hack, right? If there's a way to tolerate it. And so what I did was I took, of course, the same days that I ate the kolache, because that's basically white flour dough with sugar, I decided, okay, what am I going to do here to get like a pure response? And so I made bread, homemade bread. Now keep in mind, you can also argue that there was yeast in there too, and so I did want to mention that. So I made homemade bread, and I ate it for breakfast, I ate it for lunch, I ate it for dinner, and I was like, all right, what's happening? Like, of course I felt bloated, of course I felt my usual stuff, and I woke up in the morning with my eyes super puffy. But the crazy thing is that I also woke up in fat burn, and it's because I limited how much I had. So I think when you're looking at different things, you want to see, do you get a cortisol response in addition to the carb amount that you eat? Because I do believe that any food that you're sensitive to, you will create a cortisol reaction, a stress reaction in the body. And so what I was doing with this was trying to see, like, did that happen for me? And it didn't with the wheat. The corn, whole nother story. Definitely corn is not my friend still. I hate that because I love popcorn, and tortilla chips are so good. So, yeah, I had tortilla chips for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. I made chilaquiles in the morning, and then I had like nachos for lunch, my own, of course. And then for dinner, I had chili and just dipped the tortilla chips in there and made it kind of like nachos anyway. And I had the portions where it was like 12 chips. Did you know that 1 ounce of chips is only 12 chips? It's not even fair. Anyway, I could eat like 8 times that portion, no doubt. But I kept it in check just to see what would happen. And yes, at night I was in carb burn after all that, and then in the morning I woke up with carb burn. So I would probably have to say that my issue there, definitely cortisol release in response to the corn chips. So why do I want to tell you all this stuff? I hope you're still listening. You might be like bored out of your mind. If you're still listening, high five, email me, let me know that you listened this far, because I'm just going to give you a big hug, but also, like, maybe I need to consider some gifting of Lumen devices. All right, there you have it. Challenge. Email me and let me know what you thought of this podcast, and we'll put together a challenge. Not a challenge. We'll put together a drawing for free Lumen. So, at this point, I literally love this because it just gives me a lot of insight that I was kind of guessing before, right? I'm going off of what gurus, I'm going off of research, but I also am that type of person who argues everything in my head and like, well, does that apply to me? Does it? I don't know. Does it apply to everyone? But this is cool because your carbon dioxide is your carbon dioxide. And it's flat out going to tell you what kind of burn, what kind of fuel you are using. So I definitely, going forward for all of my female programs, anyone who wants to lose weight, anyone who wants to balance their hormones, anyone that wants to work on their body composition is getting a Lumen as part of their program, hands down, because it's just so insightful. And the more that you are into collecting data on yourself, and I don't think you have to keep doing it for months and months and months. I think if you spend a whole like couple weeks like over the holidays like I did, looking to see what things affect your body, I think you can really see some huge insights. Now, one thing I didn't mention is alcohol and fat burn. Alcohol is interesting because alcohol stops your fat burn for about 10 hours. And then what it does is it'll often create a delayed fat burn later on. And so I tested this one out recently on New Year's because I had a champagne drink. It's New Year's. I want to see what's going on. And I also had a little bit of my husband's beer. He had this passion fruit mango beer. I don't know. It was clearly I like fruity things. It was good. And I had that. So if I looked at total amount of alcohol, it's like a drink and a half. And when I went to bed that night after New Year's, I tested my Lumen. I sure enough was in fat burn. And then when I got up the next morning, I was also in fat burn, and I couldn't help but think, because let's be real here. I was out with friends. We had snacks. I definitely had pretzel bites and things that I know usually would irritate my system. And I was having like mustard with the pretzel bites. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and then we had barbecue, which was just like meat and coleslaw. So I thought, well, that's interesting. And then in the next morning, I was still in fat burn mode. And then I was like, I'm not going to eat, and I'm going to test this a little bit later. And so I went to test before I ate breakfast / brunch at like 1 o'clock, because I often will fast after I go out and eat things I'm not necessarily used to. And I had turned into carb burn mode by then. So I think what I was seeing was a delayed effect of the alcohol in the system. So this is something to think about too when you're playing with the Lumen device. But fascinating stuff, super fascinating. So anyway, I wanted to share this with you because honestly, as I started this podcast out, the two biggest questions that I've had over the years are, Doc, what do I eat? And what do I do about fueling around workouts? And they've been frustrating to me because I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. Everyone's so different. And, you know, going on 17 years of practice now, it's been like the biggest freaking conundrum. And even for myself, it's been one of those things that I'm like, I don't know. It seems like something works for a little while, then it stops, and then it's let's just put it this way. It is the age-old, like, what the hell kind of concept for a lot of ladies as you get over 35. So there you have it. Those are my insights on the Lumen to date. And I wanted to share it now because it's that time of year. This is being released in January when a lot of people have made New Year's resolutions, and they're like, I'm going to work out, and I'm going to lose the weight, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And sometimes going in with great intentions but not having the resources we need to keep us on track can be tough. And so I wanted everyone to kind of think about the Lumen as something to be super helpful, that can be super helpful in guiding you. And if you need help with it, I'm definitely incorporating it into my women's programs. So if you're a lady out there that's like, hey, I wouldn't mind having somebody coach me through this, I got you on it. It is so much fun. So for the challenge, like I mentioned, if you want to win and get your name in to win a Lumen, email me at Dr. spelled out JKRAUSE@gmail.com. I will take everybody's submissions there for the first week. And so if you're listening to this January 11th of 2023, I'm going to stop this. So if it's way past that and it's a couple years past, I'm not going to be doing a raffle of Lumen at this point. But you got till January 11th to email me, and I'll put your name in a hat, and we'll see who wins a free Lumen. And if you're like, you know what, I don't know if I want to win one, I just want to get one, then you know what, head over to lumen.me, M-E, and you can get $50 off if you enter in HealthFix, HealthFix, and go from there. So you know what? Try it out. Consider it. Ask me questions. I'm here for that. You have my email now. So everybody, I hope you guys are just, I don't know, I guess I hope you have some hope in terms of if you get stuck on what to do with your metabolism, things aren't working like they used to back in the day to drop a couple pounds or get your body into the composition that you wanted it to, consider trying out the Lumen and just being open to exploring all that it has to offer for you. All right, you have survived another episode of The Health Fix. I'm your host, Dr. Janine Krause. You guys have a great day, whatever you're doing.
Hey, fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.